Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining me again. This time I'm going to be talking about a film that hasn't gotten that much fanfare. I'm talking about Gretel and Hansel. So this film currently has a 60% Rotten Tomato score and a 21% audience score. For those of you who know nothing about it, Gretel and Hansel is kind of a retelling of the classic fairy tale of Hansel and Gretel. You know, in case you need a little refresher, they go and find the gingerbread house in the woods. They start eating from it, and they find out it belongs to a witch who tries to eat them. So this is kind of a retelling of that, not to be confused with 2013's Hansel and Gretel, which starred Jeremy Renner and I forget the female co-star's name. But that film was kind of panned by critics. I thought it was a pretty decent film. It was entertaining. But anyway, this is not a continuation of that or has any involvement with that. This one is helmed by Sophia Lillis, who plays Gretel, and Sammy Leakey, who plays Hansel. Sammy Leakey is more of a new, he's just a kid. And Sophia Lillis, you'll most likely know her from It 1 and 2 that just recently came out. I give it 6.5 out of 10. Now here's why. When I finished seeing the film and I saw it had a 60% critic score and then the 21% audience score, that was really in line with what I expected. Because if you go and see this film, you will not agree for probably 85% of the movie. As I'm going through this film, the acting is done nicely. I mean, two child actors that, I think they did a great job. Alice Krige does a great job as the witch. The cinematography is just excellent. It really, really does build this sense of dread and pulls you into this old style fantasy world that they're in. And it is just creepy. Like, a creepy vibe permeates the entire film. It really does a great job of filling you with dread. And the interactions with the character that you find out, or that she's a witch, but Hansel and Gretel don't necessarily know, and then they kind of know. Their interactions with her, are very sufficiently creepy, and it really builds you with this type of dread. I've talked about films like this before, slow burn type horror films. Not for everybody. Not everybody likes slow burn horror films. So that right there turns a lot of people off who otherwise like horror films, but they don't like slow burn type of movies. But and I've said this in other reviews, for a slow burn movie to work, it has to continually build the dread. To keep you, it has to give you little tidbits throughout to keep you interested, to keep watching, because, hey, the action isn't picking up, but, they're setting up enough pieces, that you can see, that you can tell that, hey, this is going to collide at the end. So it has to do that. And then more than anything, I'd say that the characters have to be interesting as well, to keep you engaged. But more than anything, the ending has to pay off. If you're building and building and building and building the entire film and then the ending falls flat, it's, even if you did a great job at everything else, slow burn films are very heavily end loaded. And so if that ending falls flat, then, you're just not going to like it. And I found myself very much enjoying this film throughout the entire, it's very reminiscent of a film that came out earlier called The Witch. If you haven't seen that one, it's a great one, and it pays off well. But this is very similar in tone to that film, and I could absolutely see these films, both of these films, The Witch and Gretel and Hansel, being kind of a double feature. But this film builds and builds and builds, and then when it gets to the final chapter, it kind of leaves you feeling like that's it. Some of the elements make you think that, okay, well, maybe it's because they have it primed for a sequel, and there's more of the story that they haven't told. That might help explain why it ends the way it does. But for me, I thought the ending was pretty unsatisfying. There are, I'm not, without giving away too much away, there are points that are left unresolved. Big plot points. Like I said, they kind of make you think, okay, well, they must be going to a sequel, and then this story. Not even talking about the other plot points, but how they wrap up this story, you know, it just isn't satisfying. It's like, okay, so we went through that whole entire thing, for this. So even if, the plots that are going to be in the sequel, even if those are great, what you deal with here, isn't enough. The best example I could have is, if you're watching an Avengers film and, okay, if I'm watching Captain America, where, okay, hey, this is a story, but then it also ties into a bigger story, so they'll have elements that may not necessarily are for this film, but it's to set up, another film that's going to go on down the road. Well, the film itself, besides the elements that are talking about something else, it has to be satisfying. You may look at, okay, the other film that it set up, that might have been great, but the plot points in this one, didn't work. And, there might be a sequel down the road. I could see them doing it with the way this ended, but, I thought it was unsatisfying. And that's why I really was not surprised when I saw the fan rating, because I can really see it leaving you with that bad aftertaste. But, like I say, acting's great. The cinematography is really well done. It really pulls you into the world. It's really creepy. It's really haunting. I just wish that, for me, the ending was better. So 6.5 out of 10. If you're a big horror fan, you might really enjoy it. A lot of the horror critics, so there's the mainstream critics, and then specifically horror critics of horror films. A lot of them really enjoyed it. So if you're a really big horror person, then you might completely disagree with me. But anyway, that's what I'm here for. Let me know what you think. Hit me if you like what you see. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. If you completely disagree with me, if you agree with me, hey, write me a comment. We can talk about it. That's just where I'm at. 6.5 out of 10. All right, guys. Thanks for the support. I'll see you next time.